Hi, everyone. My name is Tammy Loy. I'm a pediatric nurse practitioner. I work at our pediatric clinic, and I'm here to talk to you today about return to school health. And thank you so much for joining us. All right. So my wonderful colleague, Colleen McAvoy, helped me create this presentation for everyone. And we're going to be talking about sleep because our kids are going back to school. We want to talk about the importance of sleep. We want to talk about how much sleep do kids need, what happens when kids don't get enough sleep, how we can help them get more sleep, and medical issues that affect sleep. How much sleep do kids need? More than this little gal. So children 6 to 13 years of age need 9 to 12 hours of sleep per night. Teens need 8 to 10 hours of sleep per night. And this is a graph showing how much the range of sleep that people need based on their age. So you'll see it goes from youngest to oldest. So the younger you are, the more sleep that you need. And again, ages 6 to 13 need about 9 to 12 hours of sleep per night. And then teenagers need about 8 to 10 hours of sleep tonight. And from there it goes, it's about 7 to 9 after that. So what interferes with sleep? A lot of the return to school things. So homework, sports, electronics, internet, computers, TV, and then medical issues. And these include sleep apnea, restless leg syndrome, asthma, waking up with that dry cough during the night, acid reflux, and that burning discomfort that may come with that in the chest or upper stomach area. Well, this is what not to do with, but we'll get to this in a little bit. So side effects of inadequate sleep. You'll see that there's slowed reaction time, attention is affected, vigilance, there may be memory problems, and then executive functioning problems. So this includes impulse control, time management, decision-making, organization, problems with multitasking, and then you also see some emotional regulation difficulties. So someone may be quick to anger or quick to tears. I'm sure everyone has been there before. So let's talk about how to get your child more sleep. So first, you want to have a set bedtime. So essentially every day, if your child is waking up at a certain time for school, then you want to subtract the hours from that they need. So for example, if they're a teenager and they need 10 hours of sleep and they're waking up at 6 in the morning, then they'd want to go to bed around 8 o'clock at night. And then also keep the bedtime and wake up time about the same on a day-to-day basis, including weekends. There can be an allowance of a 1 hour difference on weekends, but just try to keep it in the general ballpark. Before bed, make that time quiet time. So you'll want to dim the lights if you can, avoid any roughhousing, high energy activities, intense exercise before bed, and try to avoid any stimulating activities like watching TV or playing video games. Also, don't send your child to bed hungry. So if your child is hungry before bed, it is totally fine to give them a snack. Just if it's best if it's a mix of one that'll give them some calories and glucose off the bat, and then some protein for staying power. So like apples and cottage cheese, or berries and nuts or almonds, that would be helpful. Avoid products containing caffeine. So no sodas, no tea or caffeinated tea, no chocolate, no coffee, no Red Bulls. Also, make sure that your child is getting enough time outside during the day. In the morning, if they're outside, if they can just see a little daylight when they wake up, that really helps their circadian rhythm, and it also helps wake them up for the day. If they can get regular exercise, also that's great. Bike riding, walking, sports. Keep the bedroom environment quiet and dark. If your child needs to have a nightlight, that's totally fine. Just have it be a warm light. It can be amber, red light, orange light. Those are all great. Let's see, keep your child's bedroom at a comfortable temperature during the night. So it's been shown that on the cooler side is better. This says about 65 degrees. It can be tailored to your child. For me, that would be too cold. But if that works for your child and you, that's great. If it needs to be a little warmer, perfect. Don't use your child's bedroom as a timeout or punishment area so that they don't have a negative correlation with their bedroom. And then finally, avoid use of electronics before bed. And this includes televisions, video games, laptops, and phones at least an hour before bed. So this is for adolescents, and it's primarily the same. I just circled the two that I thought were noteworthy. So the first one is that if your teenager is sleeping for 2 hours extra on weekends than they do during the weekdays, that's a sign that they may be getting inadequate sleep during the weekdays and that they may need a little bit more. The other one below that I circled is to try to avoid having your child do homework or play games or anything in their bed. Try to keep the bed solely for sleeping so that they associate their bed with a calm and sleep environment. Some medical issues that can affect sleep. This is obstructive sleep apnea, which you would probably see if you hear them snoring. That's what that is. Also asthma, waking up with that dry cough, and then reflux. A little more about obstructive sleep apnea. You would see this with potentially seasonal allergies. There are other reasons as well. But if you see anything like mouth breathing, a lot of congestion, you could see puffy eyes and then a crease on the ridge of their nose from constantly wiping their nose and any drainage. If you see any of these symptoms, just come see us because we would need to do an assessment and then we would have a lot of things that we could try. Okay, so that's a perfect segue. Come see us for annual checkups. We love seeing our kids once a year when they're school age and adolescents. We're happy to check on sleep issues during this time. We always do certain screening measures. So we check blood pressure, we check height and weight, vision and hearing, and then we're really there to see if you have any other concerns or if your child has any concerns or questions for us. We love to see them and we love to see our families. And that's all. Thank you so much for coming.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kalina. I'm one of the dietitians at Northern Inyo Hospital. I work with inpatients, people who are admitted to the hospital, and then I also do outpatient counseling. So you can get a referral from your doctor and you can come talk to me. My appointments last between 30 minutes to 1 hour. And this is a really good time to set up goals for your health and for nutrition. But today we're going to be talking about kids' nutrition and going back to school and just some common things to keep in mind during this time of year. Okay, so I'm going to be talking about today with Denice Hynd, who is the other dietitian, the importance and value of adding kids into everything food related. So we're going to be talking about some common emotional, nutritional, and physical concerns of children during the school year, opportunities to involve kids and teens, and the value of including them, value and importance of including them. And Denice will be talking about some goal setting, follow-up, and also some practical recipes that we'll be sharing with you guys. So some of the concerns during the school year involve picky eating, which is a huge thing, not of course just during the school year, but all around. A lot of kids have this, and even teenagers can be really picky. One of the number one nutritional role models are the parents. So just keeping that in mind, a lot of times kids will eat like their parents do. Failure to thrive is whenever a child is not meeting their weight goals or like the weight markers that typical kids in their age group meet. And a huge reason of failure to thrive is due to a deficit of calories, or they're just not getting enough calories. Also, emotional dysregulation can be a cause of not eating enough or perhaps eating too much. Depressed immunity, reduced physical activity, bullying and isolation are huge, sometimes even like during school lunch periods. If a kid is getting bullied, maybe they won't want to eat lunch. So just all things to look out for. So some opportunities to involve children and teens in food-related activities with snacking and eating meals and recipe selection and development. Just being able to provide the kids, having them like be a part of all this process. If maybe they went to a friend's house and they tried a new recipe there or a new ingredient, and they came home and they were like, I really want to try like eggplant. It's a great way to have them like have some autonomy in what they eat and incorporating that into the next meal. Grocery shopping is a really great way to expose kids and teens to a variety of different fruits and vegetables and all sorts of foods. Even having them go into the grocery store and having them pick out one new fruit or a type of vegetable that they want to cook during the week. Cooking is a really great way to involve kids with cooking and gardening. Kids and teens, if they are involved in that process, they will more likely want to be able, they'll be more willing to eat the food if they have a part in cooking or growing it. Gardening is such a great way to get introduced to just to nature and to kind of like the science aspect behind food. Same with composting. What a great way to introduce kids to the conversion of waste to nutrient-rich soil. I remember as a kid, we had a couple compost heaps on my parents' property growing up in Madera, California. And I remember going out there early in the morning and turning the compost with them and seeing the steam rise up. And it just was so fascinating to me. And I think that that's definitely a huge reason why I became a dietitian, is because then that soil nurtured the garden, and I just saw that whole entire process. So that's a really great thing for kids to be involved in. Ordering at restaurants, giving like the kids the autonomy to make their own decisions, and also being responsible about looking at the menu before you go to those restaurants to make sure that there's healthy options for the kids. Cutting coupons and reading weekly circulars. It's a great way for also food related, and also a good little introduction to finances. So the importance of meal times together. So mealtime is really this symbolic representation of family unity, but it's definitely more than just a symbol of unity. It's actually been proven. There's so much research done on family meals together that it has all these really positive benefits on a child's health and wellness. So it can improve family communication and functioning. Whenever families join together for a meal, they're able to develop and nurture family traditions. And also they are working through like all their communication and also all their functioning. The meal times can also increase the development of healthy eating patterns in children. Parents are definitely the primary nutritional role model for kids. And just knowing this, of course, the parents need to have like a baseline nutritional knowledge, but they can absolutely, absolutely like increase vegetable and fruit consumption at meal times. In teens, dinner is the most frequently consumed meal. So really knowing this, capitalizing on that fact, a lot of times teens will run out the door and not have a really good breakfast, and then they might eat at a fast food joint for lunch, but then they know that they can count on dinner to get a more nutritionally robust meal. And research has shown that kids who eat more meal times together, they actually eat more fruits and vegetables. Also, improved literacy and school performance. This might seem like an unusual correlation at first glance, although whenever kids have this mealtime with family, they are able to work on their communication habits, and they can listen to stories and have practice telling their own stories to their family. And also just families sharing general knowledge back and forth. The kids are able to participate in that. And research has shown time and time again that kids and teens actually have increased grades at school with if their meal times with their families increase, then their grades also increase. Also, meal times can reduce risk for adolescent mental health problems and addictions. Again, there's countless research studies on this that shows that adolescents will have a lower incidence of smoking, doing drugs, and drinking if they have a lot of meal times together with their family. And it's also just such a great way to introduce or to stay engaged with your teens, and a relatively easy one too. Although there's definitely a lot of barriers sometimes to meal times. Sometimes, parents are working a lot, or maybe it's a single family. But as long as we kind of move towards that area of having more meal times together, it's always going to be great for the health of teens. And from here, Denice is going to be taking over.
Hi, everyone. My name is Denice Hynd. I'm one of the other dietitians with the health district. And thank you, Kalina, for sharing that story of remembering your composting days. And I think that that's what this presentation is all about. Children do connect their memories, and that was a positive memory that Kalina had with composting. And so our goal for everybody that's listening, either currently or in the recording, is to create those same memories for their children. And I have a similar memory of my family in the jungle in Mexico. My grandmother had a bubblegum tree, and when I was little, I'd go there for summer vacations in Puerto Vallarta, and she would take a machete to the trunk of the bubblegum tree, and then she would take spearmint from her garden and roll her own spearmint chewing gum. And so I think that that really influenced me into learning about food and nutrition. So thank you for sharing that. So when we involve our children and our families and even our community and our neighbors, we have these great gains that aren't necessarily specific to our nutritional intake and or any kind of nutritional behaviors or deficiency. They actually broadcast out into an umbrella. And so here are some examples. So when we involve children from a young age all the way to teens and even young adults, we have this sense of safety and a safety net that somebody cares about us enough to teach us these skills, or we have the safety that, an adult, and it's not necessarily going to be a parent, but an adult is there to listen or to maybe probe and ask me about my day because maybe I don't want to speak up. But in that moment, the adult in the home might ask, how was your day? What's going on in school? And that opens up an opportunity for the child to then say what's going on. And we know that at the beginning of the school year, there could be a lot of awkwardness or transitions that are uncomfortable. And this gives an opportunity for the child to open up. Confidence, definitely anytime you get involved in the kitchen, whether it's learning how to create a recipe, how to source your inventory through grocery shopping, or how to compost and garden, it builds confidence and this improves self-esteem. And when we have positive self-esteem instilled at a young age, then we are more confident and ready to then take on another task, whether it's joining a leadership council at the elementary school, or joining the soccer team, or joining a community of some sort within the school. So it builds confidence in the child, and then that confidence is then magnetic for the other children in the home, and even the other children that child neighbors in their classroom or neighbors in their community. It also gives the child a sense of responsibility and awareness of one's ability when given ingredients. So they feel good knowing that if they take 3 ingredients, bread and peanut butter and jelly, and under the supervision, they're given, a butter knife, that they can actually make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and they can feed themselves. They can be an asset and a support system to the adults in the family that are busy trying to get the day going. And they can even help take care of older children or younger children when it comes to preparing them a snack or a meal. And this is where I really believe that children should have access to all the food in their kitchens, whether it's accessible in their pantries, in their freezers, on the counters, or in the refrigerators. We should give them access so that way they don't feel shame if they are not supposed to get into something and they finally do, they're going to feel shame because they weren't supposed to do something. We don't want to have any feelings of shame when children access food. And so anyways, giving them responsibility feels good. And then also empowerment. When you know that you know how food grows, when you know that you can take trash and waste and repurpose it into soil, when you know you can make a sandwich, when you know that you can read measurements on a recipe, it feels good. And that goes back to that sense of confidence. And children who feel empowered are more likely to raise their hand in class and feel that they can answer a question, regardless if they think they're going to be right or wrong. They're more empowered and they feel better about participating because they just feel good about themselves. And we want children to feel that way all the time, even if they're rookies in baseball, rookies in the kitchen, or rookies when it comes to reading in the library. We want them to feel good and know that that mistakes are okay. Next slide, please. So here we want to also talk about reducing picky eating. Kalina talked about this a little bit. So the more meals together we have allows us for greater opportunity for exposure. And the research really says 30, 40, 50 times we must expose a child or an adult to a new food to avoid that food neophobia, the fear of new foods. And so the greater times, the greater frequencies that we have for breakfast snack, lunch snack, dinner, even like a fun dessert, it really helps reducing those picky eating behaviors. And so we want to always offer an assortment of items during mealtime, and then definitely serving things family style. And like Kalina mentioned earlier, really giving the child that independence to not only serve themselves, but playing a game and allowing the child to serve the other adults or the other children at the table. This also, right now it's back to school, so why not, with recipes and groceries, improve math skills. So making school subjects relatable, whether it's science, whether it's math, whether it's finance. My youngest son is 7 years old, and one of his homework grids that he brought home today was his teacher said for him to guess how many $10 bills he's going to need to buy the next set of groceries. Well, at the cost of groceries right now, it might be $100 bills, but how fun that the teacher who's in pre-K or in second grade is already thinking about these things. So we, as adults in the home, we can definitely make school subjects relatable by saying, look, we're going to cook a homemade pizza together. How many people in the house? Okay, there's 4 people. How many slices do we need? And going from there. This is a great time during COVID and when times are tough for everybody in the community, for children to give back to their neighbor, give back to their classmates, give back to the community. And so really, I know that in Bishop, it might be sometimes challenging, but really sourcing out where can a child give back, whether it's at the church or at the school or a community garden or at the Salvation Army, or even if you take trips to Reno or to Lancaster or Ridgecrest, is there a soup kitchen where the holidays are coming up, where the child can really participate in giving back to the community, or maybe just making sack lunches, peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and distributing them to people who are less fortunate along the riverbanks. Also, getting children involved improves their physical activity and improves their sedentary behaviors. And so gardening, grocery shopping, composting, walking along to donate food, all of this increases our steps and ultimately lowers our blood pressure, increases our self-esteem, improves our mood, improves our sleep. And there was a funny meme that said, we are no longer potato farmers, we are now couch potatoes. And so we want to definitely not make that the truth for ourselves. And we want to go back into that high physical activity lifestyles for overall wellness, but also to promote healthy behaviors within the community. Next slide, please. So how can we set goals within our home? So one thing that you can do is use a calendar to record which days and meals the child has or will help. So maybe you're a split family and the child is only with you a couple times a day, a couple times a month. What a great incentive for them to look on the calendar and say, next time I go to grandma's house, or next time I go to mom's or dad's or whoever, I get to then prepare the pizza for the day or the homemade bread or the cupcakes. Even fun foods should be incorporated. It's not always fuel foods. It should definitely be a little bit of fun and a little bit of fuel. When you record a calendar, when you physically write down in an actual calendar, it incentivizes us to continue that habit. And so get a monthly calendar that's free on Word document, post it on your refrigerator, and have that child write whatever they want to make for that day, giving them that independence. And it'll incentivize the family to do that habit again and again. And before you know it, it becomes a part of your lifestyle. Focus on increasing the variability of ingredients as time goes by. So maybe the first week that you start including your children, you start with the foods that you know that they like. So they like chicken, strawberries, and cheese. Great. And maybe the next week they have to choose one more ingredient and continue to increase the frequency. Before you know it, you've introduced them to a ton of new foods, and you can then record that. And then at the end of the year, at the end of the month, the end of the season, you can praise them. Look at all the great new foods. Again, it closes that loop. I feel empowered. I have that self-confidence. I feel good about what I'm doing. Showcase and photograph your child's efforts. So much of our stuff is photographed. So instead of taking a selfie, why don't you take a picture of your child's recipe or your child's meal, or maybe you start your own family cookbook. Allow the child to choose a new recipe per week. So go through, your circulars or going through books, magazines, even, kids YouTube or kids TikTok, whatever it might be that's a child appropriate, allowing them to choose a new recipe. Again, allowing them to have that full independence of going to the grocery store with you, picking the fruits and the veggies and whatnot, and then paying for it at the grocery store, and then showing them how to properly wash and prepare that produce. Encourage children to swap recipes with friends. How, when money is tight and, maybe you can get together with another parent for the holidays or a birthday and say, instead of an actual material gift, can we swap recipes? And maybe we swap a recipe and that actually baked good or that salad, instead of buying a holiday gift, or instead of bringing a hostess present, or instead of a birthday present. Chat about upcoming food-related events and how to participate. Maybe there's a carnival where you can sell things, or a PTO bake sale, or maybe there's something going on at your church that the child can get their hands in. That also empowers them to feel good that it's not just, eating doesn't just take place in the home. Eating takes place at school and all around us, based on culture, tradition, and our daily lifestyles. And allow the child to choose table talk discussions. We have a slide on that coming up, but allow them to choose the discussion, the topic. So today might be, age appropriate. If it's a young child, what animal would you be versus an older child? If you weren't in school, how would you be spending your day? XYZ. So allowing them to choose the conversation for that day, and allowing them the freedom to speak openly during a safe mealtime. Next slide, please. So how do we follow up on our goal setting? So we want to chat about our favorite recipes. What do they like? What do they not like? Consider a family cookbook, like we already mentioned. Discussing opportunities for involving other family members. So this is how we get the conversation started. Who would you like to have come over and cook with us? Maybe it's the neighbor, maybe it's grandma, maybe it's a cousin. And maybe it's somebody that has different cultural and different lifestyles. Maybe you have a family friend that is a vegan, inviting them over so that person can teach you about their culture, their beliefs, and their eating habits. Maybe you have somebody who practices Fish Fridays. Let's talk about that at the home in a safe environment. Create you can create a pros and cons list on dining out. What is so fun about dining in? What is so fun about dining out? And then using comparing and contrast. Again, it goes back to tying it to a subject that they're learning in school. Discuss their favorite table talk topics, list their new skills. So maybe at the beginning, they only knew how to eat. That was their skill. And now they know how to turn on the blender. Now they know how to strain. Now they know the names of the equipment in the house. They know the Instapot from the air fryer, etc. Offer a certificate of completion. People love certificates. And so why not create a really fun certificate and maybe have a ceremony, make it fun, make it rewarding, incentivize the child to want to continue to practice in these habits. And awards and recognition, maybe a gift card to Anne Marie's or a gift card to, the next cooking store, whatever, so they can buy something to now start their own cooking toolbox, etc. Next slide, please. So here's some brief table talk ideas. You can ask, what was the best thing about your day? What's something hard that happened today? What is your idea of a perfect day? What's something that made you feel proud recently? If you had to change your first name, what would you pick and why? I know that there's a trend going on social media right now that parents are asking their children, what did you fail at today? And they want their children to speak up and say, what is it that you struggled with today? And I think that that's such a great conversation starter. So I love asking children, what did you fail at today? And then turning it around and saying, well, look at all these positive things that came out of that and how learning it's not linear. Next slide, please. So here's a fun idea that Kalina thought of, and using cookie cutters or even biscuit cutters to make traditional everyday foods a little bit more fun. So yes, we can do peanut butter and jelly, and that's traditionally very well accepted by children and adults, but why not make it more fun and cut it with a butterfly cookie cutter? And then you can swap out the peanut butter for maybe sunflower seed butter, walnut butter, almond butter. Maybe instead of jelly, you start mashing up your own blueberries, your own bananas. Maybe you visited a local bee farm and now you're using the honeybees, the honey into the sandwich. And then you transition into, chicken and pesto, you transition into new ingredients, and you just make it really fun and attractive. In order for habits to stick, that has to be attractive for not only children, but for adults as well. Next slide, please. And this is a really fun idea also, is why not have their lunchbox be a little bento box, which is breakfast for lunch. So occasionally surprising them with maybe some waffles, or maybe even like those breakfast waffle wrapped corn dog sandwiches type things, including a fruit salad, maybe a little bit of yogurt and honey dipping sauce, making it fun versus just always having the same ordinary thing over and over again. And at the end of the at the end of the presentation, we'll have a recipe for basil and tomato fried rice. So often fried rice is, sometimes it could just be veggies and eggs and soy sauce, but this really takes a nice marriage between the things that we're currently growing in our gardens during the summer, which is basil, any herb really, and tomato. So we have that recipe handy for you guys. So maybe that'll be your first recipe in your toolbox as your family. So in summary, including children in daily chores related to cooking and eating allows children to feel empowered, creative, safe. It helps them feel successful. It allows them to feel heard and included. And then when they are so excited, then they're going to tell their teachers and their classmates and their friends and their cousins and whatnot. And then it's going to be magnetic. And then that's how we develop a community of good eaters, a community of people who share meals together, family style, which is, how we want to go back to the way it was before. Questions?